If you're looking to connect with others and find some helpful ideas and resources for your time at home, Participate has you covered. Each week, a Learning at Home menu is created and packed with fun themes, live events, and lots of free resources. To explore the Learning at Home community and connect with more than 600 educators, parents, and other caregivers, visit participate.com/OnEducation.
I believe in freedom, and America stands for freedom, and yeehaw. Let's go. Welcome to On Education, part of the On Podcast Media Network. My name is Mike Washburn.
And I'm Glen Irvin. Friends, we have an awesome pod for you today. We will discuss how we can best celebrate graduation safely, debate whether we should be calling educators Rockstars, shout out our amazing moms and wives, and our guest this week is Adobe's Head of Global Education Programs, Tacy Trowbridge.
Mother's Day yesterday.
It was. But we can't actually see our moms. Or I don't know if you can, if you guys are able to go ahead and... You can't. You had talked about that before, too, so you guys are still...
I called mine.
Yeah, that's what I did, too. Yeah. So yeah, my parents actually didn't get to go out anywhere, and it's really sad. And I think that the generation that is older than us, they really have a hard time making true connections. Like, you know, we get onto things. I know on Friday evenings, there's a bunch of different groups. For example, having a happy hour. There's Coffee EDU in the mornings, using a Zoom or whatever it might be. But I don't think that, and I don't want to, basically say that all people that are older than me, but specifically my parents who are in their 70s, they have cell phones and whatever it might be, but it's not like when they call me, they don't FaceTime me, for example. It's just a good way of being able to describe the difference. They're not FaceTiming me. They're just actually literally calling me like you would traditionally. You're talking on the phone. The text messages between my parents and I are super short, and they're not really long drawn out types of things. I just think it's just because they're not comfortable with that type of media to be able to exchange ideas. And then now they're stuck at home, and just feel bad for them. I feel bad for my mom as far as being able to just get out there and connect with people, because that's what she does. So hopefully she's doing great. I know I talked to her, but yeah, I do feel bad. And I could definitely tell that she was sad as far as,
not
it's Mother's Day, but
people.
It's like, I'm stuck at home. It sucks.
Yeah. And a lot of the generations older than us, or even our generation, I mean, to be honest, actually, probably our kids' generation is the first generation that I can think of that will consider like online interactions to be equally as meaningful kind of interactions as, face-to-face potentially in some cases. And they just don't, it's invalidated. Like it doesn't, I just talk to you on the internet now. I don't, and it's like not as meaningful to them. And in some cases it's not meaningful to us either, but it's still, it doesn't count to my mom that I called her. No. It's like, when I, but we can't do anything about it. This is kind of just the way it is right now. One of the, so we celebrated, we did what we could. I tried to make a good meal, and, I got her a gift, and, let her relax and have a day. And, tried to take as much of the pressure off as I possibly could. And it was good. It was, I thought we had a good day, I think. So, we watched a movie together, which is fun. We actually, and I'm going to get hate for sure for this, but we hadn't watched the last Star Wars yet. So The Last Skywalker.
Yeah. How was that?
It was I enjoyed it. I think all the three new ones are very good. I enjoyed them. There's some weird stuff, but have you seen it?
I have not.
Okay.
No.
So there's, I know, but it was good. I enjoyed it a lot. One of the other things that we're doing, I don't know if you do this very much, like with everybody, but one of the things that we've been doing is Cheryl's been learning Minecraft.
Really?
Yeah, she's been
That's awesome.
doing PD stuff. She was actually in so Steve Isaacs and Kathy Chow Isaacs are doing PD with through a Canadian company called Fair Chance Learning that are very good. And she's in those online sessions, so she's doing PD with Steve Isaacs. Who would have thought, right?
That's awesome. Great person to be able to do PD with him.
For sure. And Steve's just tickled that, my wife is in his PD sessions. It's pretty funny. So she's been learning how to play Minecraft, and one of the things that has spawned is family Minecrafting. So now it's me on my computer in my office, Isaac in his room on his computer. Jacob has Isaac's old computer in the kitchen, because that's where the little boy's computer goes. He doesn't use it very often, but he can play Minecraft for sure. And Cheryl on the laptop in the kitchen as well. And all four of us in a hosted, so I start a world in Minecraft Education Edition and host it, and then all four of us join in, and we're playing. We're literally playing a Minecraft survival world together. And Jacob's obnoxious, and as a 4-year-old probably would be, but it's been a lot of fun.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's definitely a new development there. Get the whole entire family doing the Minecrafting.
Yeah,
it's usually only
right.
the guys for us. My wife is not too much of a gamer, so yeah.
It's been fun.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
It's been fun. I wouldn't be surprised, audience, if you saw a YouTube channel pop up of us four playing Minecraft together, because it might be moderately entertaining and fun, a fun creative outlet. So we'll see what happens, but it's been fun. We've been doing a lot of stuff. We've been busy. So the chat on education, you weren't on it last week. You took a little, everyone deserves a Friday night off every once in a while there, buddy. So, but we had a really good chat on education live. It's on Twitch at 8:00 every Friday night. So if you're not doing anything, you're not going anywhere, feel free to join us at twitch.tv/inside participate. And there's usually 5 or 6 of us. Actually, it's been 6 every night so far. This is our 3rd week. And a lot of viewers. Like we get 20, 25 people sometimes watching this. So it's pretty fun. And entertaining. I think it's a little more low key. There might be wine involved. It's on YouTube if you miss it, but it's been a lot of fun. And the guests, I've just spent a whole bunch of time booking the guests.
Awesome guests.
Yeah. Should I tell the audience, Glenn?
Yes.
About the awesome guests?
Might as well let them know what's coming up.
So we got Matt Miller coming up soon, a couple weeks. New book just came out. Very exciting. Dr. Adam File just got his PhD. Pretty exciting. Adam File is a good dude, and I'm super excited to have him on the podcast. We tried to have him on. We were in Miami, and I tried to hook up with him after Miami to get it together, but we weren't able to make it work, but we're making it work now.
Nice.
So he's booked Jennifer Casa-Todd, friend of the pod, is coming on. Who else? Michael Hernandez coming up. Noah Daniel, who it's funny. I sent her a message and we were talking because we've both brought up the P3 podcast multiple times as a fun podcast to do. So we're having Noah on our podcast, which should be
That'll
great.
Be super fun.
Yeah, I'm really excited to turn the tables. Jake Miller, really cool.
Jake Miller's
dude.
huge.
Jake Miller is huge.
That's I actually want to talk to him about his journey, because Noah Geisel described Jake Miller as a person that he was always following when he only had a couple of thousand followers and he was doing amazing things. And Noah was intentionally trying to get people, basically to go, hey, check out what this guy is doing. So I'd like to actually hear about his journey. That'll be awesome. He is definitely someone I totally think comes up with some amazing ideas for educators in the ed tech space.
So there we go. And Micah Shippey, Ready Learner 1, at the end of August. So I think, not to lead that a little bit, but I know that there's a book coming out sometime around then because I'm involved in it. So
there you go.
Hopefully it's out by then. That would be exciting. The other exciting news related to us is that probably by the time you're listening to this, or maybe the day you're listening to this, we'll have passed 100.
Maybe they will be the one.
Maybe this will be the one. Maybe you will be the one that gets us over 100,000 lifetime downloads. 100,000 downloads, Glenn.
That's insane. 100,000. That's
a
a crazy number. Next, 1 million.
Yeah. What is the number that we announce next? Like, I don't think you just
half
50,000 was a big deal. We were pretty excited about 50.
Yeah.
And so this is 100. I think maybe 250.
Nah, 500,000.
500,000. All right. So you won't hear anything from us about numbers until we get to 500,000 now.
And then
so we'll see you in we'll talk to you about that in a couple months when we get there.
Oh dang. We're gonna explode.
So
that's funny.
You put this on here, but I've been thinking about it a lot. I think I've said it. I said it on the chat on Education Live. I used to love grocery shopping.
Okay.
Love it.
Yes.
And now I hate it.
Well, who can blame you? The reason why I wrote this is friend of the podcast who's never been on the podcast, who should definitely be on as a guest, Corey Graham, posted in a couple of different places. Actually, she's just been sharing her thoughts on just the cultural differences from where she actually lives now, which if you want to know, you can go look at her Twitter site and Facebook or whatever might be. I don't need to say this, to where she lived previously, which was Minnesota. So she lives now in the South. I would consider it Southeast United States. And part of that move has resulted in this being a pandemic, and in the way that people are treating the seriousness of the virus, let's just call it that, is very different in different parts of the United States.
Yes.
The United States is just, it's crazy how...
Say it.
It's crazy how different we actually are in so many different places. I mean, I'm talking about from state to state. There are definitely some from region to region. My goodness, it's crazy. That sometimes I think it's insane that we're just one country, which is kind of cool. That we're unified in that way, but yet we're so freaking different than each other. One of the differences is this specific case is Corey's describing different things that are going on, and one of them was grocery shopping, and how she feels like she's a crazy woman because she wears a mask and no one else is doing it. But now she finally felt like she was not like she didn't feel singled out, because she went to Costco, where they have a policy where everyone, employees and customers, must wear a mask in order to enter the store. So then that made me think, because Nicole and I, my wife and I, we haven't gone out to go do anything. We are trying to avoid all human contact on the outside. Right. We're trying to avoid getting sick. So we are, talk about self-isolate. We've been self-isolating hardcore. And we haven't gone to the grocery stores where, like you just said, where it's not enjoyable. It's very stressful.
Sorry, can I just clarify, how are you getting food?
There's a lot of people. We get it delivered. Okay. There's a lot of people, we did a couple of times the drive up where you drive up and you park and then they put it in the back of your vehicle. Yep. But anyway, there's a lot of people in the regular grocery stores, I'm just going to call them that are not wearing masks. I don't know why they're not, but they're not. And it's highly stressful. At Costco, we went today, and it was the most enjoyable experience for friggin' going grocery shopping ever. Because number
Yeah.
one, you go and you're walking in and there's people at the door making sure that everyone that has a mask. But not only that, they're not doing it in this kind of militant kind of way. It's super awesome customer service. They're like, hey, thank you so much for coming today, blah, blah, blah. They even let us know we've sanitized all of the carts. We continue to go ahead and do that as we're cycling them back out through.
Right.
Thank you so much for visiting today. And they've just made the store where it feels like you can actually have the 6 feet of distance between yourself and anybody else. You don't feel like you're a freak because you're wearing a mask. Everyone's doing it, and you're like, it's part of the culture that they've actually built up there, and it's part of the safety. I'm so happy that she shared that, and that my wife and I were like, well, let's go see what happens, And we came out, we're like super happy about it, about the experience there, about being able to go, hey, we can go back there now, and we can go pick up our supplies. We don't have to order ahead so much time and so on and so forth. So it's super important. It's so different. I'm telling you, Mike, right now. And I don't know I know a lot of our listeners are in Minnesota. But I think even in different parts of Minnesota, probably rural versus urban and different regions as far as even within our state, I don't know how many people are out there and they are out there going out to grocery stores and so on and so forth and not wearing the masks,
Mm-hmm.
and how people are feeling about that, like as far as the listeners right now, how are you feeling about that situation? And I swear, I think people have now just kind of gone, I'll take the risk. I just swear that's kind of like the general
It's so crazy.
sense, like the sense that I'm getting from people is like,
Right.
Let's just take the risk and let's just move forward, which is just so freaky and crazy. And I think that attitude has huge implications on the decisions that are going to be made for next fall in our schools. That's the reason. That's the big connection between my grocery store and the schools is will we be like Costco, or will we be like just the typical, especially here in Minnesota, like, for example, Walmart, they don't have any of the guidelines, any of those types of things. And it's kind of like all person for themselves. And a lot of people are just going without, protection, and I think it's completely 100% is going to depend upon the leadership within the schools and the culture of those communities, which is psycho. It shouldn't depend upon that. It should totally just be like, we're going to protect our kids and ourselves and do the best that we can.
Right.
So that's my Costco story. Sorry, I went off there.
No, it's fine. Costco has consistently been the best experience for us too.
Good.
They actually removed checkout lanes at our Costco. So they basically took out every other checkout lane,
Yes.
so that there was more space between them. It kind of threw me off a little bit because our Costco, I don't know about others, but our Costco is incredibly busy, like almost all the time, normally. Always, like Saturday or Sunday, parking lot is just absolutely full the whole day. And so they've done a really good job, I found. I wear a mask everywhere. So I have one. I just keep it in my pocket. Kind of, it's a cloth mask. And I just keep it in my pocket. And the only places, so I'm the one who goes out. So I'm the assigned go-outer in the family. But really, the truth is, the only places I go are to the grocery store and to Costco. But they're different. They're entirely different. At the grocery store, hardly anyone's wearing a mask. I also think, like, I don't want to get too political about it, even though I think I do think of it politically. But I don't think there's a coincidence that, even in the Barrie area, which is a pretty it's like a little conservative bastion in the heart of liberal Ontario. You know, I think that there's something to that a little bit. And I think it's been written about enough in the States that, you know, a lot of these U.S. states that are Republican leaning are the ones that are struggling with it the most in terms of their masks and rules and laws and, you know, impeding on people's freedoms or whatever the hell it is when you're trying to keep people from not dying is doing. As far as the people wearing not wearing masks goes, I don't think I've gotten upset about it. I think I tend to get upset over like the cognitive dissonance of people. Like I've brought it up a couple times, the dude in the grocery store wearing like gloves and a mask and like, you know, basically wearing a gas mask and like got his hood up over his face and stuff. And then he goes and he like touches every piece of food in the damn grocery store. And it's like, you know, you just don't, you know, I don't know how you're like squaring that. I don't even know how to explain the cognitive dissonance of that. And so that type of experience is frustrating. And just like the basic rules that the stores have put in place that are just there for common, like, health and safety and decency, like the lanes going one way in the grocery store, and, you know, the separation between people, like in a line. And it's like, just please respect these things, respect each other. And, you know, that, you know, I don't want to get you sick, to be honest. I don't want to get you sick just as much as I don't want you to get me sick. Yeah. It's, you know, we got to be all in this together. That is the important thing, is, you know, that we're working together on this. And there are so many people that just don't care about working together and just care about themselves. You know, I need that thing that I always wanted. And, you know, I believe in freedom, and America stands for freedom, and yeehaw, let's go.
Yeah, no, I mean, and I don't know if it's, I totally agree with you on that. People feel like their rights are being infringed upon because there's obviously this giant thing about Costco. You know, there's a strike. We're not going to go there. We're going to stop going, whatever it might be. And that's totally fine.
Yeah, keeping us healthier.
It's just a strange thing to be fighting and battling about. We're like trying to make sure that we are, like you just said, keeping each other safe. But in this case, they're taking it as we are infringing upon your rights to do whatever the hell you want to go ahead and do. And that's like, really? It just doesn't make sense. But that's so much the United States. That's just there's so much of that, you know, back and forth, that maybe a lot of the things that we say doesn't make sense to a lot of people. And I'm sure it doesn't, actually. I know it doesn't. So
these crazy times.
Yes. Crazy.
When this is out, I promise I will hit publish on a blog post that is coming out. So if you've been keeping score at home, we've added 3 new team members. We've added Audrey Thornborough. Very cool. We added Kelly Coons. And making her debut this week with a blog post is Diana Myers-McGee. Very exciting. Diana isn't going to do like the summary posts and stuff like that like Kelly and Audrey are going to do. I've asked Diana to be kind of an editorial writer. So she's just going to write. Diana is very smart, very talented, very decades of experience. I hate giving away her age like that, but she's retiring. And she said to me she's looking for a creative outlet and I basically said, yeah, I mean, it was a no-brainer to bring her on. She's acclaimed and super well regarded, and as the technology head of a large district, tons of years, decades, like I said, of experience, that I think that everyone will be, fortunate to be able to read some of her wisdom on the OnEducation blog. And she wrote a good one for us, her debut. And I think it's interesting because it's a bit of a play on words. So the title is "With All Due Respect, Don't Call Me a Rock Star," and she harkens back to the 70s when being a rock star may not have necessarily been a good thing. Certainly not something that you would want, to model for kids, as an example. But it turns into a really good article on leadership.
The part that I thought was really interesting about this entire thing, obviously the play on words with the rock star, but really talking about connecting it to how do we actually become true rock stars as administrators? Like, what are the things that we need in order to do our jobs successfully? And she really does a great job of breaking down some key things that she believes that that an administrator or any kind of leadership needs to become part of who they actually are. So the first one there, Mike, she has forgo judgment. And I mean, that's a powerful statement there. And she definitely is quoting Walt Whitman and talking about basically how easy it is to go ahead and be judgy about a million different things in education, but how important it is to forego that, right?
Yeah. And then treat employees equally and with respect seems to make a lot of sense. I mean, that feels, it's funny that these things even need to be written, but we've seen so many examples of administrators during this crisis that are definitely not doing some of these things, and so that's been frustrating, and it makes an article like this paramount in terms of importance.
She writes on there too that we need to ensure that we acknowledge everyone, and that made me actually think we have done things specifically in my school, myself and my colleague, where we do call out certain people for doing amazing things, and it's kind of made me rethink about whether or not that's a positive. It's kind of like when you acknowledge that specific kid in your class or those specific kids in your class, and you're not actually acknowledging the group itself, and how that can create some basically a bad culture as far as in your class, where you have kind of like the group that you're praising, but then the other kids who you're not really acknowledging their contributions, as she put here, where they actually might not be as obvious. Because a lot of times people that get recognized as a rock star, we have to know this too, is the people with the loudest voice, like the people that just speak up, that are willing to go ahead and speak up at a staff meeting or lead a group spontaneously or intentionally for whatever else it might be, or go to a conference and deliver a presentation. And it's interesting. I like that she says we need to kind of take a step back and really see what are the contributions that our entire team are delivering, and make sure that we acknowledge everyone. Otherwise, you're abandoning and you're leaving some people behind.
Totally. So we'll want to make sure that you read this. We're going to publish it, get it out to you in the next couple days, and I think you're going to love it. And I'm so excited to have her join us and to keep writing. So you should see something from her about once a month, and it's going to be great. When we come back, we're going to be talking to Adobe's Tacy Trowbridge. So stay with us.
GoGuardian helps thousands of K-12 school districts maximize the learning potential of over 8 million students. GoGuardian's products enable productive and safe digital learning by helping educators identify learning patterns, protect students from harmful and distracting content, and support mental health. To support schools during their distance learning transition, GoGuardian is offering free access to their entire product suite until the end of the school year. To learn more about GoGuardian and download their free resources about distance learning, visit their Distance Learning Resource Center at goguardian.com/distance learning.
All right, welcome back to the podcast, everyone. Tacy Trowbridge leads Adobe's global education programs and the Adobe Education Exchange, where almost 500,000 educators go to find and share resources and ideas and be inspired by other great educators. Her career in education began, like many do, in the classroom, where she was a teacher and a technology lead in the Bay Area. Welcome to the podcast, Tacy.
Thanks so much. I'm thrilled to be here.
Tacy, we'd love for you to share a bit about your background and history and what brings you to us today.
Well, I started my career actually teaching swimming. That's what convinced me that this is where I wanted to be. So it sounds like a strange place to start. But in the summers in high school, I was teaching students to swim. And I loved watching them gain new skills, gain confidence, and be able to do things they couldn't do. What that did for me was light a fire of just passion around teaching and learning, and real excitement around watching someone gain new skills and do things they didn't think they could do. I then spent some time as a middle school teacher. I taught English and history, and I loved the opportunity to help students develop their confidence and to gain more flexibility with language. As I'd been teaching for a number of years, the tech coordinator in my school dragged me to a conference one weekend that was about digital storytelling. And I took back to my classroom some of what I learned there, where I brought in new opportunities for my students to communicate in different ways. And I realized that while teaching the 5-paragraph essay is a great way to organize your thoughts, writing is a really important skill, it wasn't where communication was going. And as a professional, I don't think I've ever convinced anyone of anything with a 5-paragraph essay, although I learned some valuable skills from that. But the other thing I noticed as I brought digital video back into my classroom and that kind of storytelling was that the students who were great writers weren't necessarily great visual communicators. And the students who struggled with writing often found new possibilities as they began to communicate visually and to tell stories. And so what struck me was the importance of all students having skills that would allow them to be successful in a world that was going to be increasingly visual, increasingly digital.
So everyone loves. Oh, first off, I should mention my wife also taught swimming, and all through high school as well, and so I thought that was a weird, interesting connection. Everyone loves a good origin story, and anyone who's listened to any bit of the podcast over the last couple of years knows a bit of mine. And there's a weird Adobe connection, not a weird one, a cool Adobe connection to it. Tanya Avrith is one of my heroes. Tanya, I wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for Tanya, and she knows it. We've had many talks about it, and I am, I love that, I consider her a friend now. Like we hang out and stuff. And so that's fantastic. But she was very, very influential in me building up my career when I was teaching in the classroom, and she was a big advocate for me. And it got me thinking about, and we also really love working with Clara in the times that we've worked with her, and so it got me thinking about your team, and it's actually a lot like the Participate team. Interestingly enough, how education is at the core of your team in the sense that, like, you're an educator, and Clara was, and Tanya is, and like your whole team is educators. It's at the core of your group, and you've been with Adobe for quite a while, like 9 years now, and I'm thinking about like the team and what you've done in 9 years ago. I wouldn't have listed almost a single Adobe product as like a must-have tool in like K-8 or K-12 education. I really wouldn't. But now, when we go through a list of K-8, K-12 tools that you would have to have, I mean, there's so many. So I'd love for you to talk a bit about your team, a bit about the last 9 years, like where, you've done like so much. Like if you had to write a story of like companies that have really brought it in the last 9 or 10 years, Adobe in education would have to be near the top of the list.
Well, thank you. I'm really glad to hear that. That's exciting. I think that I have worked really consciously to build a team of educators, and that is, we're an unusual group at Adobe. And as we think about where Adobe's going and engaging with future creators, this is a critically important team. And we need to have a voice to lean on the great giant ship of Adobe and shift direction in a way to engage the next generation. And one critical way to do that is through educators. So I think of my team as folks who speak education as their first language. Then we also speak technology, we speak design, but those are second languages. And so some of what we're trying to do is bring the important voice, the understanding that of being rooted in the classroom and that experience, of being able to convey that to a technology company that's designing tools, and then also to be able to think about learning design and the best ways in which we can help educators and students be inspired and empowered to tell their own stories, to gain the critical skills and knowledge that they need. I would say that some of what's helped us over the last 9 years is also what's happened in the landscape. When I started as a technology coordinator, students came to the lab, and I worked mostly with teachers to help them figure out how to integrate technology into curriculum, but the lab was where everything lived. I had the expertise and knowledge. I had the tools. People could come into my space. It is completely 100% the opposite now, that students come in with all of the tools that they need, even just on their smartphone. They come in with experience and with interest outside of the classroom. And so the role of educators has really shifted. So I wish I could take credit for this, but I really can't. This is partly about just the nature of communication, the kinds of tools that we all have at our fingertips, the understanding of the power of media and of digital video as a way to help communicate who we are, to change minds, to get ideas across. And so I think that's really the critical shift. I will say the other thing that my team does, and Claire is a fabulous example of this, she's deeply connected to other educators. The further you get from the classroom, the harder it is to remember what it was like. And so some of what we do is listen really carefully to the 800,000 educators on the exchange, to the leadership communities, to understand what circumstances look like, and particularly today as we face really unprecedented times, understanding who our audience is, the kinds of things that they need, and the ways in which we can help them has been critical.
So, Tacy, I'm an instructional coach, and we're always looking for tools to put in the hands of our students that will help them to express their ideas through creation. But we're looking for tools without a big learning curve to allow the focus to be on the learning and the content of the content area and not on the learning of a specific tool. One of the tools that Mike and I have raved about on the podcast is Adobe Spark, which if an educator's out there listening and you haven't tried this tool out with your students, you should do this immediately. It is simple to use, but it allows students to create professional products. Is the simplicity behind these tools intentional? I am imagining so. And I'd like to hear more about kind of when you guys are, even your product team or just you guys when you're having these conversations, putting these tools specifically into the hands of kids. What's the thought process behind that?
Absolutely. I think that's the Spark tools are such a great example. When this started just as the seed of an idea, the engineer who was leading this project, his wife was a teacher. And so he talked a lot to her about use cases, understanding how things would work in the classrooms. And while things have evolved tremendously since then, the core principle about designing a tool that is easy to use, that's web-based, where the technology barrier, the design barriers are are low. So it's easy to create something beautiful, and it lets you stay focused on what you're trying to communicate. That's absolutely the intent behind Spark and the set of tools, that we want to make it easy to stay focused on your story. That's the hardest part. The technology is easy to get distracted by, but the most important thing is the content that you're creating, the story that you're telling. And so creating a tool that is web-based, where all you need to do is know how to click a plus button, is a really critical strategy, and directly designed to empower students who are as young as my son in second grade. He started using Spark in kindergarten, to be able to use a tool that can create things that are beautiful and powerful.
And this is the way we want students to demonstrate their learning too, right? Like it's, especially in the time that we're going through right now, where there's a lot of transition, a lot of shifts in mindset in terms of grading. Standardized tests have been thrown out the window, completely. Building up what you've learned in terms of demonstrating that stuff, though, hasn't gone away and shouldn't go away. We just need to find more creative ways to do it. So talk a little bit about how Adobe, and how it's being used in the classroom to build, we can call them portfolios or call them, other ways to demonstrate what you've learned than just the mark that's on the sheet of paper that goes home. That isn't going to happen in some places this year.
Absolutely. And I think we've got a really interesting opportunity as educators to rethink assessment and the ways in which we can help students demonstrate what they know and can do, their competencies, their ability to reach particular standards. That lots of the ways in which we've done that have gone out the window. Absolutely. That schools are making decisions about grading based on equity and they don't want to grade privilege, and essentially the students who have access to devices, who have access to the internet, who have quiet spaces to work, are the students who are going to do well. That's not the point for anyone. And I think that poses a real challenge for us to figure out, how do we do assessment? I'm hopeful that one of the things that lasts beyond this, the current situation that we're in, is really a deep focus on what are the right ways to assess student learning. And as I look at the possibilities around portfolio, I think there's some really exciting ways in which students can use portfolios to show who they are, what they know and can do, to show their growth and change over time, to tell a story about where they want to go. There are interesting opportunities as the college admission process shifts for next year, where they won't be relying on standardized testing, where a transcript is harder to evaluate when some districts are grading, some districts have shifted to pass-fail, some districts are just basing your grade on the first work that you did in this particular time period. So I think the push for students to really think about what do they know and can do and how do they demonstrate that gives them both the flexibility to bring in things that they're doing within their classrooms, within their schoolwork, in their online learning, but also to bring in their experiences now. Some of them are working. Some of them may be taking care of family in different kinds of ways. And the things that they're learning as they are communicating with the broader community are really critically important. And so I think we've got an exciting opportunity right now to rethink assessment, to incorporate ideas around portfolio. We already know that colleges, that employers look at people's social media profiles to be intentional about the story that you're telling and to curate that so that you are communicating what's important about you, and whether that's the arc of your growth or it's where you've ended up. I think they're just great possibilities for students right now.
So during COVID-19 and now distance learning, many of our educators are just basically reaching out and trying to find resources and trying to find great ideas, not just okay ideas, great ideas about how to go ahead and connect with their students and really make the learning meaningful. How is Adobe supporting educators during this crisis?
One of the things we did very quickly was start to pull together distance learning resources. And we pulled from a variety of different places. We looked at the best practices that we had already on the Education Exchange, which is Adobe's free platform for educators. we pulled together resources for people who were just getting started. And we're lucky in that so many of the educators we work with are digital media experts and are great at communicating through the kinds of media that everybody is relying on today. So we looked for best practices. We worked with folks like Tanya to make sure that we could highlight the work she's been doing and give her a microphone to be able to share. I was watching
some of the live streams. I've been watching a couple of them.
They've been great. And I think we've seen some great educators participating. We've also worked on creating resources with Khan Academy that we call Khan Plus Create, that essentially take some of those resources that are student facing and add a place where you can create something or make something in response to those.
That's a great
idea.
So
part of what we've been trying to do is look at the ways in which we can help educators who are having to transition incredibly quickly. And I think the first few weeks, everyone was focused on the right things. At least that's what came across to me. They were focused on connection. How do we maintain some consistent communication with students? How do we ensure that all students have access? And I think where we're heading is also really interesting. Whereas we move beyond the crisis into how do we really ensure that learning happens well? Then we're asking different questions. What are the kinds of skills that we're teaching? What are the kinds of opportunities that students have to learn new things? That's not about covering content, but that's really developing the critical competencies that we'll need as we face a tremendous amount of change.
So, Tacy, we generally ask this question near the end of the interview. We don't give anyone a heads up on it because it's fun. And so we're asking you this question too. And to be honest, to be fair, every answer is great, so don't be worried about it at all. Love to know what 3 pieces of media, think of 3 things, 3 books, 3 videos, anything that has inspired you, something that you consumed as you were growing and learning, any 3 pieces of media that taught you something that maybe a book you reread all the time, or anything, any pieces of media that we can share with the audience that they can go and listen to or read as well as they continue learning too.
Well, I think one of the things I'm going to reference is is the assemblies that my son's school have been putting on during COVID-19. So one of the things they've done is they perform a song, and the teachers all sang "Stand By Me" to the students. I can't send you to look at this because of privacy concerns,
sure.
But there's something that's really powerful to me about people coming together to do something that's kind, that's bigger than themselves, that's conveying the story of who they are. My son loves to watch it with me because it makes me cry every single time, which he thinks is hysterical. But honestly, it's watching these teachers and their commitment to the students. They're reaching out through music, through video, to make sure that students don't feel alone, that they get to see their teachers with their dogs in their backyards or tucked away in a corner of their house. But there's something personal about that. There's something universal. So that's not a great one to answer your question.
It's a good answer.
It's the one that really stands out to me right now. And then I've been thinking a lot about Station 11. I don't know if you've read that book, but it is kind of an end of the world book about about an epidemic, essentially, that wipes out huge percentages of the population, and what survives, and how people as humans come together. So the thread for me is this, like, what's the point of connection? How do we figure out how to learn from each other, how to recreate meaning, how to stay engaged with other people, how to be kind in really challenging and trying circumstances? And so that's one I've read a number of times. And then the other one, and since I taught middle school, I love young adult fiction. So I'm going to talk about a book by Karen Hess that, of course, the title's escaping me right now, but maybe I'll talk about Out of the Dust, which is a book she wrote about the Dust Bowl, which is in verse. It sounds like such a strange middle school book, but it's really a beautiful story about a family. And it's told so poetically in language that's really powerful and evocative. So I've picked just a book, 2 books, and 1 piece of media to describe some of the things that I come back to that really matter to me.
Tacy, where can people connect with you if they want to be able to ask you questions and follow up with anything? Where's the best place?
Maybe the easiest way is on Twitter. I'm at Tacy Trow, TacyTrow.
Tacy, thanks so much for joining us. This was great.
My pleasure. Thanks for the opportunity. I really appreciate the work that you all do.
Thanks for listening to OnEducation. My name is Glenn Irvin. My co-host is Mike Washburn. OnEducation is part of the On Podcast Media Network. You can listen to this show and many others by great educators like Monica Burns, Mike Matera, Tisha Richmond, and many more by visiting onpodcastmedia.com. Want to get in touch with us? Check out our website at oneducationpodcast.com. You can tweet us at OnEducationPod. Mike is at Mr. Washburn on Twitter, and I can be found on Twitter at IrvSpanish. You can find us on Facebook by visiting facebook.com/OnEducationPod. We're also on Instagram at OnEducationPod. Want to support OnEducation? Visit our Patreon site at patreon.com/OnEducation. There, you can get access to full videos of the podcast and so much more. If you're enjoying the show and think others would too, we would be thrilled if you shared it with them. Please leave us a rating or a review in Apple Podcasts or the Google Play Store. When you leave a rating, it gives our rankings a boost. It helps others discover the show. We want to thank our presenting sponsor, Participate, for supporting us. Check out participate.com to learn more about them. Thanks as always for listening, stay awesome, and see you soon.